Will any Oilers be joining Connor McDavid on Team Canada at the Four Nations Face-Off? Hey everyone, welcome into Oil Spills. This episode brought to you by Milani Plumbing and Heating, Edmonton's first choice when it comes to plumbing and heating. Rob Wong joined alongside by Edmonton Journal Oilers writer Gerry Moddejonge. And Gerry, we're just about a week away from the Four Nations Face-Off announcement for the rosters. Team Canada, of course, going to be one of the favorites. We know Connor McDavid is going to be on the team. He's the biggest lock, of course. But when you look at this Oilers roster and some of the teammates that could potentially be joining him, maybe it's a Zach Hyman, maybe an Evan Bouchard, are any of those names kind of jumping out to you at this point that could be joining Connor McDavid come February?
Yeah, Rob, you know what? That's a good question. And I'd have to think at this point, the way the Oilers season's been going, that list is probably going to be pretty short beyond the big gun. Obviously, Connor McDavid is a shoo-in. Everybody's going to be tuning in just to see what he does on another roster that isn't the Oilers, because boy, this team has really been struggling again to start the season this year. Certainly not maybe the lowest of the lows like last year's was when they started out in such a bad spot that they ended up bringing in a new head coach and the big turnover there. And we know the turnaround happened and everything's that went on last year on the way to Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final. But of course, there's no guarantee the highs are going to be as high either this year when they do turn around, and they will at some point. They aren't, you look at this roster, you think this can't just be a team that's hovering, right around 500 the entire way. Started gaining some traction here lately with a big win over the New York Rangers in town that they weren't supposed to win. But boy, they finally showed a little bit of dominance. So, but yeah, it's taken some of these guys a long time. You start thinking who else might get the invite to this great big tournament on this global stage. You mentioned Hyman. Now he's, nowhere near the 50 goals a game. What did he get? 54 last year as a career high. It's nowhere near that. When you look at his per game average at this point, when I think he has all of a handful through the first quarter of the season here. And you mentioned Bouchard. Now that's an interesting one, because whatever the coaching staff wants to do, they might be loaded up on defense elsewhere and need a proven guy who can, really sling on from the point. So that's always an outside chance. Beyond that, I mean, it is Movember. You kind of got to think Stu might be in the running if it wasn't for his atrocious save percentage and goals against average at this point. Nowhere near up to par that we've seen from him over his first couple of years as the guy in Edmonton. Last year, his first full year, leads them all the way to the finish line and comes oh so close to hoisting the cup as a second-year goalie. 1 year removed from, as a rookie, being named to the All-Star game. So, those are probably their best. Of course, Stu hasn't had as much success going this year, but you look at the defense in front of him that has changed mightily over the offseason as well. Definitely he's not getting the run support that he's used to from that high-octane Oilers offense of a year or two ago. So, lots of factors to consider, but I know I, for one, will be enjoying watching McDavid put on that maple leaf and give it a go.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see when that announcement is made, who will be joining McDavid on that roster. Meanwhile, you mentioned Zach Hyman. He's banged up right now, not set to play this weekend for the Oilers. Neither is Viktor Arvidsson. What is the latest when it comes to both of those, and when we might see them back on the ice, Gerry?
Yeah, you know what? We've asked about that this week again. Arvidsson, of course, put on the LTIR. Hyman, not as bad, but they're both, day to day with this undisclosed injury. We haven't been hearing a lot of, even the upper or lower body stuff coming out of the mouth of head coach Chris Knobloch. So, you know what? Arvidsson was not supposed to be this long. He was only supposed to be day-to-day, maybe miss a game, come back in time for Toronto last week. But complications arise, whatever they are, and wasn't quite following along that initial prognosis. So he's going to be back. Actually, the timeline is the same for both of them, as far as we know from this week. Not practicing, not at the morning skate, of course, for that game against New York. But they are supposed to be back following this 3-game road trip the team's embarking on, beginning with Utah on Friday night.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. Utah, Colorado, and then Vegas on Tuesday. As always, leave your thoughts in the comments section below. For Gerry Moddejonge, I'm Rob Wong. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you next time.